Welcome to the Pewtercast. This is our Buc'In the News show for October 26th as we head into the Bucs at the Bengals. I was about to say Browns, but that is not the Browns. It is the other Ohio team, the Bengals. Bucs at the Bengals. I am Brent Allen, your host, joined as always by my co-host, Ren Daxt. Ren, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good. I feel like I've oh, darn it. Exercise all the bad mojo I feel like I've been having since the Bears game. I'm glad I thought about it so I could put it so eloquently. I'm feeling a lot better after the Browns game. So yeah, let's do it. I'm ready to go. Turn to the page. Thanks to that defensive performance.
There we go. And hey, listen, I gotta keep seeing that defensive performance. But man, I am super excited. For those of you guys who might be new to this show, here's how the Buc'In the News show works. All week long, we get to talk about the game. We have the instant cast that comes out after the game, where we talk about all our initial feelings and everything. Then we have our final thoughts show, where we talk about the dust has kind of settled a little bit. We've got to think about it, and we go back and reflect on the game just one more time. And then we also get into your emails and questions and comments about the game as well. But throughout the whole week, we don't really talk about all the news that's coming out about the Buccaneers. So this is the show where we do that. And the way we do that is we break this down into 3 segments. The first one, we are looking at the transactions that have happened over the course of the week as far as the roster is concerned. And then we'll take a look at some of the headlines coming out of One Buccaneer Place, the Advent Healthcare Training Facility spot down there, whatever they call it these days. And then we'll also take a look at the injury report, potential inactives as we turn towards the Bengals game, and looking forward to that. So, Ren, let's go ahead and get started. Up first, the transaction report. Actually had quite a few transactions here, which is no surprise given the fact that we already know Kwon Alexander, Jack Sitchie both went on injured reserve. So we had a couple open spots here on the team. But before... I want to talk about Alexander, Kwon, but I want to save that actually, I think, for the next segment because I think it probably fits a little bit better there.
Sure.
But replacing them, the team has signed linebacker Riley Bulla. And I don't think we even had him on the training camp. No, the practice squad. I don't even think we had him on practice squad. He was just kind of walking the street when we picked him back up. But he's only been away from the team like 2 weeks. Something like that. I mean, it's not been long.
No, they let him go in training camp.
Oh, was it that far back?
Yeah, they wave injured him during training camp.
Oh, okay.
But he did say his first day back, he did reporters gather around and talk to him, and he said he was actually delaying, or I shouldn't say delaying. He said he wasn't trying to get healthy as quick as possible. Because it was like the understanding that as soon as he got healthy, basically it was like, as soon as we can re-pick you up, we're going to pick you back up. And it just happened to coincide with the week that Kwon went down.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that. So, okay.
That's what he implied in his very short interview.
Sure.
So, yeah, he wasn't rare. He wasn't out there trying to get healthy as fast as possible so he could put himself out on the market. He was sort of like,
right.
Okay, so what week do you guys get to? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be ready. I'll be ready then.
Right. And just to flesh out what you're saying there a little bit more, when a player is waived injured, there is a time limit before the team that waives him can re-sign him, but other teams can actually re-sign him
2 weeks prior.
2 weeks prior. Okay, so thank you for that. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that or picked up that implication at all. So he did that, and then to further replace, we actually brought in a brand new linebacker, Kevin Minter. I know a lot of people have been talking about him over the course of this week. He comes to us, I think, from the Cardinals.
Yes,
was that right?
Yes. Originally, I think he was in someone's training camp this year, not the Cardinals. I don't remember. I want to say Cowboys.
But he's been around for a while. Like he was when Jason Light was in the Cardinals. It was when they drafted him. I think he was like a first or second rounder or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really remember when the Cardinals drafted him. But yeah, Jason Light was with them. He played with Kwon at LSU at linebacker. So there's a little familiarity there. Not only where they could go ask Kwon about it, but also like Jason Light had a hand in scouting the guy, and they ended up drafting him. So obviously they knew Jason Light liked him. And then with 2 linebackers going down, he just happened to, like we said about Riley, he was walking the street. And I find more and more that the Buccaneers, at least this regime, it's really about relationships, about bringing in players. It's rare that they bring somebody in that they haven't had a hand in scouting, or somebody like this Nacho defensive lineman guy, I think Duffner. No, Munkin. He was on Munkin's team in college.
Okay,
and,
right.
So it's like, I already know about him. Yeah, let's bring him in. I wonder what that gap, that point, how much that makes up. So let's say that, there's 2 defensive tackles out there. One's Nacho, and the other one's Player B. And Player B has a 60 grade by the Bucs grades, and Nacho has a 58. Is that, with the familiarity with the player, is that enough to, I wonder what that spread is. How far does the other player have to be above? How much does that I can't even say it anymore.
Familiarity.
Thank you. Count as far as point-wise, sort of in a grading system, how big the gap has to be.
It's an interesting thought. Certainly you hear about that, especially the mid-season pickups. There's almost always guys that people have relationships with. I mean, that's how Jaquiz came to the team. Several others we have seen. Some people that are not with the team anymore, and
Freddie Martino,
yeah. Very interesting. So I'm curious to see what Kevin Minter is going to do and where he's going to land especially him and Riley Bullough. I mean, if we look right now at our linebacking core, we know Kendall Beckwith isn't back yet. So our starting linebacker core, we're assuming, and probably right, I'd give us 95% chance of being right, is going to be Levante David, Darius Taylor, and then Devontae Bond.
Yes, that is 100% correct. It has been confirmed.
Has it? Okay, cool. So we have that. So this Kevin Minter guy, Riley Bullough coming back, and then still Cam Lynch. We are certainly filling in the backup spots, but also these guys are looking more towards special teams and bringing in help like that. So, we'll see. We'll see how much play each of these guys get. Hopefully we don't need them. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean?
We don't need them yet on defense.
Right. So we'll see where those go. So, continuing with some of the transactions report, we waived cornerback Javian Elliott and wound up re-signing another cornerback, Devontae Harris. He was a guy who was with us earlier this year as well. So we basically just sort of swapped them out. I don't recall Devontae Harris really having any productivity in his short time with the Buccaneers or what he may have been doing. So I'm curious to know why they thought he was a better option than Javian. Javian, of course, has been around the team for quite a while. Any thoughts?
I don't think Harris can be a practice squad player. We picked him up. He was on the Saints. We picked him up when we started getting injuries at cornerback, and then he got hurt. He pulled his hammy. Now I think the Bucs. I don't know if the injury waived him. I'm not exactly sure what they did with him, but then we got these injuries with McCoy and Curry on the defensive line. So we sort of needed those roster spots, and he was just kind of like the guy out. But bringing him back, I think it was almost like last week. Like last week they waived him, maybe 2 weeks ago, and now he's back. It seems that it was a numbers game with him, and they wanted him on the roster as depth at corner. Which we see we've needed at least early on this season. So having him back's not surprising, and I think it was just a move. Well, he can't go on the practice squad, and Javian can. So we're going to see if Javian clears waivers so we can re-sign him on the practice squad.
Right. Now, with that said, for anyone out there who has a Javian Elliott jersey or you're a fan of Javian Elliott, no worries. He is back with the team on the practice squad. Making room for him, they released cornerback Marco Myers, kind of a no-name guy who was with us during training camp, although I do have his signature on my football back there, Ren.
Yeah, he's the Lakeland Fire guy.
Oh, yeah. Kind of a local-ish product right there. So he is back, and then also as a part of some of these signings, we also waived a cornerback, Amari Coleman, from the injured reserve. I guess, was he with us during training camp and got thrown on injured reserve? Because I don't.
Yeah, probably. I don't remember him at all.
I don't know this name at all.
So he might have got hurt early, but it was like a pretty serious thing. And now that he's finally healthy and be able to get another job, it's like, okay, now you're officially off the team forever. Not forever, but you know what I mean.
So let's talk about real quick before we move on about two names that are not on this transaction report, and hopefully we'll be seeing them sometime soon. Kendall Beckwith. And I know there's been some talk about him, especially after this big injury to Kwon. Have you heard any updates as far as what his return may look like? I keep hearing that it's closer than what we may think, but honestly, I thought it might have been
week 1
about now, right? Like we're kind of past closer than what I think. So
yeah, his amazing, I guess, recovery from his ACL tear in college is sort of what is hurting him now. When people are like, "Hey, where's Beckwith?" You come back from ACL in 9 months, and you have a car accident. I don't know how long ago it was, but it was April. Yeah, so we've all had sort of like a broken bone, and it doesn't take this long to sort of heal. It's like the cast is only on like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever, and
I wouldn't tell you something right now, but I don't want to jinx it, so I won't.
Okay. So that's where everyone's like, "Where's Beckwith? Where's Beckwith?" Because when he first said that a couple weeks ago, smiling, sooner than later, or sooner than you think it is. I'm like, I thought you'd be on the team like week 1. So no, you're like way off with me at least. So I did hear on Coach Cutter's radio show today that he hopes he'll be practicing very soon. He didn't say next week,
right.
But that kind of, Cutter learned his first year, when it was like training camp, and he's like, oh, no, it was OTAs. Like, yeah, we expect all the guys back for training camp. And then training camp opened, and like 3 guys weren't back yet.
Right.
And every day the media's like, so where's Sweezy? So where's Jaquiz,
Kenny
Smith?
Bell, wasn't he one of those guys?
Where are these guys that you said would be ready? And he's like, yeah. So now he doesn't nail it down. He just goes, sooner than later, hopefully, that type of deal. So, which is fine because, we did it to him as fans and the media members.
Sure.
But you said to be ready. Now he's not ready. Okay, well, then I'll never tell you that a guy's going to be ready again. So I'm thinking he comes back, but the Bucs have, I think, 2 weeks to decide to activate him on the 53-man roster.
Okay.
So he could come back to practice, we'll say, Wednesday after the Bengals game, but the Bucs don't have to put him on the 53-man roster for another 2 weeks. So you get like a 2-week grace period. But, he could come back and practice, and with, the way our linebacker scores right now, and all that really depends on how, Taylor and Bond play, he could be back for the Panthers game, assuming he starts practicing Wednesday.
Because it's not one of those things where he has to come back and they have to wait 2 weeks. They just have 2 weeks to decide whether they're going to cut him or put him on the 53 man roster. So,
or you could keep him on the PUP.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So in that 2 weeks, he's not actually off the PUP list.
Right.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Officially, he's not off the PUP list.
All right. So that's Kendall Beckwith. Hopefully, we get him back because Lord knows we need him. And that's assuming he comes back playing at the same level that he was playing last year. We have certainly seen players take a dive in their second year, have a little bit of a fall off, especially. You think that's got to especially affect a guy who missed all of camp and OTAs and preseason and the first half of your season. So I'll be interested to see what kind of shape Kendall Beckwith is in when he comes back. Hopefully it'll look like he hasn't missed a step. The other name that I just kind of wanted to bring up just to sort of check in on is Vernon Hargreaves. Is he actually done for the year, or is this a guy that maybe we can expect to have back sometime this year?
That's sort of, the intriguing question as far as injuries right now with the Buccaneers, because you see him posting on Instagram, that he's in one buck a lot, which isn't, nothing that's not this, oh, he's at one buck. That means he's going to play. But I do remember, there was speculation out there where you get to bring 2 guys, off the IR. One, we've been assuming that would be Mitch Unrein if, eventually sometime.
Right.
And when he got hurt, it was sort of, okay, maybe VH3. Then Conti got hurt, and I go, okay, it might be Conti too. So, but then I saw a tweet from Greg Allman, who is, never wrong, just about. I'm just saying just about because I don't have any proof that he's been wrong, but nobody's fallible, or everybody's fallible.
Everyone is fallible. No one's perfect.
There you go.
No one's infallible.
Yes.
That's
yes.
what you're saying. Yeah.
I am struggling today. I need to go to thesaurus.com. So he said that Vernon is done for the year. Like his injury, is season ending. Some type of verbiage like that. But I'm still holding out hope.
Okay. All right.
That until I hear it from the Buccaneers, and maybe it has been, I just missed it. But I'm still gonna hold out a hope. And at this point, of those three I mentioned, Conti, Unrein, and VH3, I just have a feeling that VH3 is the one who's going to come back first. I don't know why. I have no proof. Maybe it's because I want it to happen so bad.
Yeah. We certainly could use them. Absolutely. All right. Well, that is going to put to rest our talk about the roster and all of those transactions that are happening. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about some headlines that have come out of One Buccaneer Place. There's really been a lack of them, Ren. We were talking about this kind of before we started recording. This has been a quiet season, not just a quiet week, but as far as news and I don't want to say gossip, that's not really the right word, but the little tidbits that we saw coming out of One Buck every week last year. This year as a whole has seemed to be a little bit quiet, and this week is no different.
Yeah. It feels like you used to be able to watch press conferences and pick up one or two things that, whoever they're talking to, the head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, the quarterback, whoever they were talking to that week, there would be one or two little nuggets in there that no one would report about, and it wouldn't become a thing. And I don't know if the reporters and this coaching staff, because it's been the same for a while now, have sort of settled in and kind of know where each other's line is. And I don't want to say they're going through the motions at all. I'm just saying that, they've learned what questions that they're just not going to answer. So they sort of quit trying to press it. It's a very fine line. I know would be for me, getting credentials as the Petercast, because I would feel like any question that I pressed that made someone uncomfortable, they'd just come and take my credentials away.
You do have that thing of you're going, don't ask a stupid question. Don't ask a stupid question. Don't ask a stupid question.
Well, but for me, it'd be like, don't press this question because obviously they don't want to answer it. I'm not really one to ask stupid questions. Of course it happens because no one's fallible. Just kidding. So, yeah, it's just, there's no sort of snap or pizzazz, I guess, nuggets coming out of these press conferences. The questions are pretty mundane, or they just seem mundane because we've heard them so many times now. And the answers, it's like they know each other,
Right.
It's like playing the Panthers twice a year. It's like, what you're going to get when you walk into a press conference now on both sides. So, yeah, they just kind of settled into their little groove, and they're just, clicking away.
Yeah, so let's take a look and see what we can maybe pull out of some of the press conferences or some of the things we have heard from our friends there in the media room this week. The big one, and I did kind of want to put it off, is Kwon Alexander. Obviously, that's the big one, heading to IR. He is out for the year. Big impact to the squad, apparently, Ren. Much bigger than I would have anticipated. If I'm being honest, we were talking earlier this year. We have been talking earlier this year about how, is Kwon really as good as we all think he is? And kind of, I think we've been saying, probably not. No. And so, when you sit back and think, well, what does it mean to lose Kwon Alexander? What if I wasn't thinking to injury. I was thinking more just, to contract stuff. Like he goes to another team next year going, maybe it really wouldn't be that bad. What's he really bringing to the team? But it feels like there might be a lot more intangibles and other things that losing him might be a little bit more of a big deal. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that we were wrong asking those questions about, is Kwon, is he good as we think he is, or Bucs fans put him up on this pedestal to be? And I think we are correct on that. But what we didn't realize was how much, you hear coaches and players talk, oh, he's the heart and soul of the defense. He's the heartbeat of the team. And you're like, okay, because you hear it for every team has one, every sport. Basketball has one guy on there who does it, and hockey, there's always this guy. But sort of the reaction and the body language and the play we got out of the Buccaneers coming out of that, that second half, after it's been widely reported, where Kwon sort of like, as they were walking, out of the locker room to go back on the field, Kwon comes walking out of the trainer's room and gives him the speech. And it's, it's more like, it's not like go get him. It's more like, don't take anything for granted. Like, look at me. Like, like I could have signed a big contract and I didn't. Now I might be homeless. Of course I'm exaggerating, but it seemed from reports that's sort of more what the speech, sort of the flavor of the speech was. And you could tell that it I don't want to say it sit well or shook them or whatever, but it affected the team. So we will see this next game. I've been a big Adarius Taylor fan. I think all he does is make plays and make tackles when he's out there. Obviously, losing Kwon is a loss, but I think now, after sort of seeing the way the team reacted to losing him, it's more of an attitude, or I don't want to say it's more of an emotional loss than it is probably a physical loss as far as skill-wise on the field.
Right. And, one of the things, too, is with Kwon, this was his first game under a new defensive coordinator. I was really kind of hoping to see, especially with Duffner, with his position coach now being the DC, maybe there'd be something that he could dial up, something that would help show us that Kwon really is the player that we kind of all thought he was for the longest time. And he was doing it, at least for this game, at least for the half that we saw. And I would have liked to have seen what that would have meant going forward. See how repeatable, how sustainable that is. Where was he going to go, and really what could he have done? I'm interested to see what happens with Devontae Bond now being in there, because I said on another show that I was doing somewhere, I forget which one it was exactly, but the three starting linebackers between Levante, Kwon, and Kendall Beckwith, and then we had Adarius as our first backup. Like, there wasn't that big of a drop off to Adarius, but once you get past him, meaning Devontae Bond and Riley Bulla and Cam Lynch and those guys, that is a pretty big drop off. So I'm hoping that maybe I'm estimating just how big of a drop off that is from Adarius down to Devontae Bond, because that's who we got now, and we'll see. We'll see really what happens. There was something else I was going to say. I was going to ask you about Kwon. Oh, let me ask you this, and this kind of fits, I guess, more in the rumor category. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation about a tweet that Kwon had sent out saying something to the effect of, "You'll not take advantage of me," and people were talking about contracts, and it was right after Ali had signed his contract. Right. And as far as we knew, he had not, at the time, been offered a contract. We didn't know anything about where their contract things were.
Right.
I have since heard from various places sort of like his offhanded comments that everybody should have just known, and it somehow I just might have missed it, that Kwon actually the Buccaneers made him an offer that some people felt was a very fair offer, and they turned it down.
Right.
Either him or his manager. Have you? So I'm just asking here for my own personal knowledge. Like, did I miss this? Like, is this something that was reported? And
no, I just said it too, and it's the same reason. I feel like, it's the same reason why you think you're hearing it as well. There's been a couple of beat writers, guys in the know, that have said that, Kwon has turned down, but it was all sort of speculation because Kwon's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, was in the building during training camp.
Right.
But then they're quick to say, well, I don't know. Like, we don't know. Was it just preliminary talks? Were those serious talks? Did they actually offer him a deal? The way these things sort of take traction or get legs is when, guys with media credentials start to say this, and then the Buccaneers don't text them or contact them and say, no, that's not what happened. Or Drew Rosenhaus or Kwon doesn't go, hey, no, that's not what happened.
Right.
So it's sort of like Lovie Smith didn't get fired. He fired himself because they told him to change his defensive coaches, and he didn't. And so the Glazers fired him. That's the story. It's never been reported by the Buccaneers. Lovie Smith has never said that, but it's come out and no one's said, no, that's not what happened. So now it's just down as, it's become truth. It's like, well, this is what happened because no one's disputing it. So sorry about that. It's just a thing where it's really hard to turn down your first fortune. I mean, if Kwon wanted $11 million a year and they offered him $8 million, over, we'll say 4 years, so that's a $3 million difference. That's a $12 million difference overall. I mean, that's a lot of money, but so is $24 million. And you decided to gamble on yourself if the story's true, and it didn't work out. And it's going to take him a couple years at least to to be able to get back in that conversation of that kind of money. And that's what's just so sad to see as far as just as a person, where it's like, hey, I think I can do this. On the flip side, it's worked out for somebody like Peyton Barber, whose draft status wasn't really that good. He came out of Auburn. He's like, I'm going to catch on somewhere as an undrafted free agent, which he did with the Buccaneers, and I need this money because I have to buy my mom a house. And now he's the starting running back of the team, and he's making more money. He's not in for a huge payday, but a lot. He did what he had to do, and now it's paying off the end. He gambled on himself. So I think if anybody gives Kwon a multi-year contract coming off this ACL, it's going to be the Buccaneers. But let's face it, it's going to be even less than if there was a contract ever offered originally. It's going to be less than that. My feeling is sort of what everyone else is saying. The people in the know, it's going to turn up into a one-year prove-it deal, and I think the Bucs will pay the most for that. It's not going to be like $8-9 million. They might give Kwon like $4 or $5 million and go, hey, we want you here. We can't guarantee you that much money until you prove it to us. So we're going to give you a very nice 1-year deal for what your market value is, and then we'll start talking again next year if it pans out. That's kind of think how the road it's going to take. But to finally, I guess, answer your question, no, I haven't heard anything from Kwon or his agent. I mean, the Buccaneers really don't know that. So, Jason Light's not going to really say it, and Mike Greenberg's not going to say it. They don't share that information. But as long as no one's coming out to dispute it, I think that's going to become, the truth, even if it isn't, about what happened to Kwon Alexander.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird things. Like I've heard it, a handful of times, and just sort of looked up and went, did I miss something? Because last I heard, they hadn't had that conversation. Moving on, Jameis Winston, your most recent favorite topic here, Ren. Let's dive into some things that have come out about him this past week. But I think these might be some things you actually enjoy talking about as far as Jameis Winston.
All right.
One of the things he said in his press conference, the Joe Bucs fans guys picked up on this. Lots of other people actually picked up on this, talking about the defense playing with swag. And one of the things Jameis said is that we're going to see more of the fun celebrations. Like this past week they got out and they had like a big stop, and they all the defensive guys got in a line and started doing this like crew rowing thing, which was very weird. Did they show that on TV at all?
Yeah.
They did? Okay. Yeah. It was very interesting. Now, I don't know why we didn't see any of these kinds of celebrations last year, when the NFL said that, hey, we can start doing these. I didn't really expect to see one out of the defense. Usually you expect to see that out of an offense when they've scored, right? So I was a little bit disappointed last year that we didn't see any, because I was kind of excited to see what kind of touchdown celebrations they might have. But you know, I don't know, Ren, how do you feel about celebrations and stuff like that with these guys having more fun, I guess, so to speak?
I don't care. You know, I am one of those people though that, you know, the defensive, like there's a wide receiver screen, the defensive back comes up and makes a stop for like a 2-yard gain, and then gets up like he intercepted the ball in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl to seal the victory. You know, like that bothers me.
Right.
Like,
right.
Like, you know, and they're thumping their chest and pointing at their sidelines and wagging their finger, and it's like you did your job. Like, you know, it's just imagine like an offensive lineman every time he doesn't allow a sack on a pass play. You know what I mean?
Not getting past me.
Yeah, and then you thump your chest, you wag your finger, and then you wait, you trying to pump up the crowd with your arms and looking at your bench. It's like, imagine like all 5 offensive linemen doing that every single pass play. No one gets sacked. Like the quarterback doesn't get sacked. So, but I thought they were fun. I liked them. I think they're down league wide. Like the Eagles used to have the most creative ones. Those were cool. Kansas City had some cool ones, but I haven't really seen any. And it's just like, you know, it's like the new fad. Like, you know, it's like the water bucket challenge. Eventually it just goes away. It's not, doesn't become cool anymore.
Right.
You know, it's just I don't want to put the effort into thinking up a new one. Like I had some really great ideas at the beginning because I've been thinking about them for like 5 years. Mm-hmm. Now I've done them. Now it's like, oh, you come up with a new one. It's like making your second album. Like, hey, your album, it's a big hit.
Yeah.
Do it again. Like,
oh yeah.
No, I've been working on this album for like 15 years.
It's like
it's the best I got.
It's like coming up with a new poll question every week, or a new,
yeah, you know, so
or a new name to call your co-host every single episode, or you know, what do I got this week?
So it's I don't care, and it was more of like I don't want to say a loaded question, but it was a guided question. It was kind of like, hey, so what do you think about the defense's, you know, row the boat thing? Oh, that was cool. You guys got anything? Well, you know, and it was that, and James like, well, I guess we can, you know, bust something out or whatever. But either way, I don't care. Yeah. You know, I want you to do it, but it's that fine line where it's fine if you do it, but if you do it and you lose, like you're in a 3-game losing streak, how about you spend a little more time in the playbook? You know,
sure.
It's that type of thing. If you're winning, everything's great. You know, you stop them on 4th down. Like they would have done that on 3rd down, and then Baker Mayfield like decided to go over on 4th and did a quarterback keep and made it. It would have been like maybe you guys should have been like back, you know, in the huddle talking about what you might see, you know, instead of like rowing the boat on the field. So it's all personal preference, and honestly, I just I think they're fun to see, but I don't care if my guys or you know, my team does it. Yeah,
I would like to see more stuff like that, because I'm reminded in things like this, you know, this is a game. This is a sport, right? And at the end of the day, this is entertainment, you know, for us. So make it entertaining if you can. But then, you know, I was talking to you guys from last week or earlier this week, my friend Joe, Wrestler Joe. And the reason we call him Wrestler Joe is because he is a wrestler, a professional wrestler. Like that's what he does. And he was telling me like the history of wrestling. I never understood this professional wrestling. It was like amateur style wrestling, but it got picked up in like the circus crowd. And they realized like as they were touring like this, if they created these characters and they created like these storylines around their wrestling, basically it attracted more people. It was more fun to come watch. And that's how professional wrestling grew from, you know, what you think of like Roman Greco wrestling to what professional wrestling is today, you know, where it's certainly much more of a show and it's more entertainment and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't want football to go that far crazy with it, but I would like to see it, but I'm kind of with you. The one thing that kind of, I don't say, it bugs me a little bit because I'm like, yeah, chill out, are the people who are like, I don't want my football player, you know, just put the ball down and walk away. Like, come on, man, let's have more fun with it. That I think is the only thing that, you know, really crops up. So I personally would like to see more just because I think they're fun, but I'm with you as far as it's got to be done at the right time, you know? So,
yeah.
Yep. Now, that said, continuing to talk about Jameis, friend Scott Smith, he was a guest on our show just a couple of weeks ago, had an article on Buccaneers.com. It was actually a really good article, Brent. I don't know if you had a chance to read it or not, but talking about Jameis as a runner and what he's turning into for our team. And he pointed out, had a couple stats that he put in there. He said he's run the ball 16 times this year, and that's just in, 2.5 games? And on 7 of those times he's ran the ball, he's gotten first down. Now, he didn't break that down. I don't recall Jameis having too many 1 or 2 yard runs. Like, usually when he's running, he's clipping off 4, 5, 6, 7 yards, maybe even a little bit more. But he did point out that he is currently ranked as the 6th best running quarterback in the league this year, which is up because last year he was only the 22nd. So,
is that in terms of yardage or?
I don't know exactly how that's ranked.
Okay.
I wish I didn't make that as a note. So could be yardage, maybe efficiency, maybe times he's
like
rushed, something.
rush per first down, like
something. So however they rank that, he's currently ranked as 6th, whereas last year he was only 22nd by the same measure. So Jameis is a runner. I put it to you. How big of an impact is Jameis's running, you think, been having? How big of an impact will it continue to have going forward? And, because Jameis is certainly he's turned on the wheels, so to speak.
Well, I guess we could look at the history of Jameis. So remember his rookie year, he had 6 touchdowns. He ran for 6 touchdowns his rookie year, and then the next 2 years he didn't run for any. And it was a thing where Dirk Cutter's don't run. It was almost at that point where you're the franchise quarterback. We cannot get you hurt. I'm trying to develop you. Don't run. Well, I think Jameis has come along in his development enough where he understands how to get down, but it's more of a situational football thing. That's why so many of his runs have been first downs. He actually ran one in, a touchdown against the Browns. So I think it's becoming a nice balance of him running the ball instead of trying to force a pass.
Right.
Right. Or even I got a 5-yard pass gain right here, but I've got 8 yards right in front of me and I don't have to throw it, and I can pick up the first down. So he's making those decisions better. I mean, the one where he ran in, Sunday against Cleveland, he pump faked the linebacker, made the linebacker go and turn towards Peyton Barber as he was still you knew that he was going to run it, but it's just, natural instinct and human reaction where he pump fakes. So you turn and look at Peyton Barber because he's there and he's your guy. And by the time you turn back, he's diving into the end zone. So I thought that was a nice heads up play by him, manipulating the linebacker while running. But I don't think that Jameis is ever going to become this, great weapon as a runner, like a Michael Vick or a Cam Newton or maybe even Alex Smith. I just think that he's going to be probably, like the article talked about, an efficient runner. It's when it's there, I'm going to take it because it's just the smarter, safer play.
Right. It was one of those things I remember watching specifically with this Browns game, and I think it kind of catalyzed what I've been seeing over the last little bit is, with Jameis, when we talk about his interceptions and some of his bad throws, a lot of times those would come off of either his holding onto the ball too long or the offensive line lets a guy get by or something like that, and he's having to do his little scramble. He loves to scramble, and he's the best in the world, I think, at maybe not the best in the world. I was going to say he's the best in the world at getting out of a tough situation, but he would always keep his eyes downfield looking to make a throw, rather than just throwing a ball away or tucking it and taking the sack, which is better than throwing an interception, right?
Yes.
So, and so Fitzpatrick comes out, and we would see there's a few times he would kind of run the ball, but it was more like he was just lumbering forward. But Fitzpatrick knew how to take a sack. He knew how to, live for another play and not turn the ball over. And to be honest, that's a little bit of what I was kind of wanting to see out of Jameis, is the idea that he would not throw the ball and make a really bad decision because people were bearing down on him. But I've been pleasantly surprised. Like, I am perfectly okay to see him get under pressure, escape one of those sacks, and do whatever dance and scramble, and not force a throw downfield, and then him wind up taking the ball, 2, 3, 4, 9 yards himself, whether he gets a first down or just gets a little bit of positive yardage. But avoiding the interception, avoiding that turnover, and actually turning, at least a negative play into a positive play. I think there was even once I saw that he just got back to the line of scrimmage. Just made it an equal play. Like, we just lost it down. That's it. I'm excited to see what happens with Jameis. I think it's more fun. I like watching, but you don't think he's going to become this big weapon? You mentioned like a Cam Brate
700 yards rushing, 1,000 yards rushing. No, I don't think so. I don't think he wants to be. He wants to. He wants to throw the ball down the field, but I think it's all part of his maturation. I think we're seeing it. Like we always talk about, like, or at least I've always said, and you agree with me that during the off season, Jameis is always working on something, and you can see it from year to year, sort of what he's worked on, or he's either taking this mistake out of his game or he's adding this to his game. And I think early on, what we're seeing is it's like the same thing, but it's having two positive outcomes. One, we're not seeing B loose in the pocket with the ball. I'm talking about fumbles, and then instead of standing in the pocket, now he's sliding, he's moving, and he slides and moves. And after he does that, it's like, well, since he knows situational football, he's like, well, it's like 2nd and 5. Like, oh, okay, I'll go get 7. Here we go. And let's get back in the huddle and get back at it, instead of not really understanding, like, you're all freaking out. Oh my God, there's guys all around me. And you get out and you're like looking. Oh, there's a crack, throw it. And then now the play's over and you're like, man, what was it? 2nd and 5. Oh, I could have ran for that. Like, he's processing sort of everything quicker or knows it more in advance. And it's just sort of like the next step in becoming, a top tier quarterback. So
is this still a carryover from last year where we saw him get injured and come back and he's got that more calm demeanor? Maybe that sort of a thing he's picked up from Fitzpatrick, of he's just calmed down. And so now he can not freak out and actually do something, make a smart decision with the ball.
I don't know if, yes and no. I can't tell you either way. Sure.
You're not like in his brain. You don't know what his thought process is. Is that what you're telling me? I just haven't seen enough of him to make a decision on that. It's entirely possible, but I think more it's was something that he decided to work on in the offseason, and now you're seeing it and it's paying dividends. Sure. All right. Well, one more thing to talk about before we move on. Jason Dirt Cutter says on his radio show this week, asking about the hot button topic that everybody's talking about, are trades. Trade deadline is coming up. He mentioned that he and Jason have talked about a few guys, and by that I think what he actually said is Jason has talked to him about a few guys. He's not worrying about it. He's he'll give his input, but he's worried about the guys that he does have. So I've seen a few website articles and stuff go out talking about, we could be potentially looking at big trades and this and that. I don't put a whole lot of stock into that kind of an answer of because I've kind of been solely on the thing. I don't think the Bucs are going to make a trade. I don't think that there's too many people that they're out there interested in. If they make a trade, it's because I think we're sending somebody away, not necessarily gaining somebody. But what does this give you a lot of hope, or is it, what do you take from this idea that he and Jason have talked about a few guys?
I like it. I'm not shocked by it, but it's more for me like that's something I wanted to know. It's like, hey, does Jason Light ever talk to you? Has he been talking about players during the trade line? Coming up on the trade deadline. And Dirk goes, he's asked for my input on a couple of players. Now that means absolutely nothing, because It could be, we've talked about Patrick Peterson, almost ad nauseum, and now he's staying with the Cardinals. But it's like, hey, Coach Cutter, what do you think about Patrick Peterson? Yes, I'd like to have him. Okay, yeah, me too. Hey, Cardinals, what do you want for Patrick Peterson? 3 first-round picks. Okay, good talk. Like, it could go, it's
right.
That's it. Like, that's as far as it goes. Just because Jason Light comes to Dirk Cutter and asks him about, 2 or 3 players doesn't mean that the next step is, oh, good, because we already had the deal in place. I just needed you to check off, because Jason Light doesn't need him to check off. Mm-hmm. That's Jason Light's job. He's just getting his input because, hey, these are guys we're looking at. They might be on your team. Give me some input. Mm-hmm. So, I've talked about it, with Big Money James there with Mr. Bucs Nation on his pod. I think the only sort of realistic spot, and I could be 100% wrong because Jason Light surprises me all the time, but if I was Jason Light, I'd be looking at a team that has 3 really good guards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I can see that.
Because we need a right guard badly. Mm-hmm. So I guess not badly. I mean, we're all going to survive and wake up the next day, but I would like to see the right guard spot I guess, improved or upgraded. But the problem is there's Alex Kappa, the draft pick that's sitting there. So it has to be for like next to nothing. It has to be like a 5th rounder probably.
Right.
Or the more I think about it, it's like they're not going to do it. It's just like let's just coach up Kappa. Like if it gets that bad, let's just coach up. And we have Evan Smith. Like he's playing 25% of the snaps anyway. So. Mm-hmm. Yep, I've changed my mind. No one's being traded.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is going to wrap up all of the headlines that really came out. Like I said, not much super deep, just sort of some of this more superficial stuff. All right, moving over. Let's turn our attention towards the Buccaneers and the Bengals game. We do that by starting to really look at the final injury reports that have come out this week. A few things with the Buccaneers, but let's go ahead and start with the Bengals first. They actually have a list about as long as my arm. Okay, maybe my palm. But it's still got quite a few people on it.
An NBA basketball team.
Hey, yeah, there you go. The 2 names that jump off the page to me from the Bengals who are going to be out are Vontaze Burfict and John Ross. There's a couple other guys, Giovanni Bernard, Darqueze Dennard, Tyler Croft, Nick Virgil. I don't know if those guys are key players on their team or not. They're just not names that I personally recognize. But Vontaze Burfict and John Ross being out, that seems like those are 2 names being out that bodes well for the Buccaneers.
Well, yeah, for Vontaze Burfict, for at the very least that we know that if anybody goes down with a season-ending injury, it would have been an accident, instead of on purpose,
right.
His play started to slip a little bit. So, but anytime you get a starter out of there, the only thing I was really worried about Burfict, it's not like, we're not going against Luke Kuechly here. It's not like, oh, great, Kuechly's out. Wow. Now we can really do some stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just, he's a dirty player. And I was worried about him taking someone's knee out. Mostly about OJ Howard, to be honest. And John Ross, I just don't, I know like everyone knew him and he ran, that sub 240 at the combine, but he's just, he's fast and he's injury prone, and that's what he is. Like he doesn't have great hands.
Apparently their backup, I forget his name, but the backup, like he's more than competent. Boyd, I think is his name.
Well, Boyd's not the backup. Boyd's the other starting side. Receiver. Yeah, Ross would be just like the speed guy. Now that does take, world-class speed off the field, and I get it. Mm-hmm. And, as Buccaneers defense, somehow, Tengid Jr. would do nothing, for his whole career and then play the Bucs and go for 2 long touchdowns. You're like, okay, it's like, that's nice. So you're sort of, so I guess for that reason, something like that, where you have this world class speed where you can blow by everybody and, and go for a deep score, and he ends up doing it twice in a game. You just be like, of course. But I think I trust his defense a little more. So I'm not, that's the only reason I feared John Ross, I guess. Mm-hmm. I think actually the loss of their running back Giovanni Bernard actually hurts us.
Okay,
because that's more Joe Mixon. And I think Joe Mixon is really good. The cornerback, Darqueze Denard, he's their starting nickel, so that helps us.
All right.
They're going to have to, they won't have their top 3 corners, out there. Tight end Tyler Kroft, one of their 2 starting tight ends. So that'd be like losing O.J. Howard or Cameron Brate. So that helps a little bit too. And then Nick Vigil is their starting Sam. So they've got.
So these are all starters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Bernard is not really a starter. He would be, I guess, the Jacquizz Rodgers or maybe the
Alan Cross.
Rojo. No, he's a running back. The Rojo, but gets more carries. But yeah, everyone else are pretty much starters. And there's somebody who's doubtful, which I thought was off. You weren't allowed to do anymore. But they got a Billy Price. He was a center out of Ohio State last year, and he's their starting center, and he's doubtful. So that could go big as well. But as far as these aren't no-name guys and fourth cornerbacks or special team linebackers. All these guys have to be replaced with less experienced players. So it bodes well for the Buccaneers.
I like it. And then you already mentioned Billy Price, Jake Fisher, and Clark Harris, both guys on their squad, but they are full participation. They will go on Sunday. So, all right, let's turn our attention to our hometown guys that we know and love, and we can talk with a little bit more intelligence about. Vin Curry, Gerald McCoy, both ruled out for the game. Neither one of them participated all week long in team activities. So apparently Gerald McCoy, I heard they probably are looking at him being out another week or 2, is what I've heard. And I forget exactly where I heard that from.
I have not heard a thing.
Yeah. Vin Curry, from what I understand, he was hobbling around on a scooter for a couple of days, and now he is in a boot walking around the facility. Gerald McCoy is not in a boot. He's got a calf injury, but it is not the same injury that Vita Vea had. He didn't tear anything, but they did. So they don't expect him to be out very long. But from what I heard, it's 1 or 2 more weeks. Is kind of what what's been out there. So those guys are there. But as far as the rest of the injury report, Ren, it's actually pretty clean. Peyton Barber, DeMar Dotson, JPP added late in the week, all with injuries, but they were all full participation today. They will all go. I know a lot of people kind of raised an eyebrow with Peyton Barber right at the beginning of the week, especially a little bit with DeMar Dotson of kind of what's going to happen if he doesn't play. And there was a lot of talk this week about, is this Rojo's week to shine and jump up? But this is why we wait until the end of the week.
You got to wait till Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. This is why, because you got to wait and see how it plays out. They could have just been giving him a rest day, or they could have, whatever. You just got to wait and see. So, but yeah, so with that, Ren, let's go ahead and turn our attention to our predictive inactives. It's one of the things that will affect the game. Who do you got? We need 7 people. We know that Vin Curry and Gerald McCoy are out, which means we need 5 more guys who will be inactive coming up on Sunday.
I just want to say it's getting that time of year for Demir Dotson to miss 3 games. That's coming up.
Be on the lookout for it. Yeah.
Be on the lookout for it, sort of his MO. And if he doesn't, he will be on the injury report every Wednesday for the rest of the year.
All right.
just letting everybody know.
Hey, Leonard Wester, how you feeling, buddy?
Yeah. But he still might go for a couple weeks, and hopefully he makes it all 16. But he every Wednesday, Dotson's going to be on the injury report for something. Curry McCoy, you said I've got Ryan Griffin.
All right.
I've got Lidke. And I've got Justin Watson, the wide receiver, simply because we have to put so many defensive linemen, have to activate those guys because of the Curry McCoy injury. And now this is what I want to happen.
Right.
I want Wilson to be activated and Rodgers to be inactivated. Sean Wilson, the running back, and return kicks. And Jacquizz Rodgers not to be activated. And I want Alex Kappa to be activated and deactivate Caleb Benenoch, and then just have Evan Smith play 75% of the snaps and Alex Kappa 25% of the snaps. Now, since that's going to happen, that's what I want. But So it's.
Let me ask you about that. Let me ask you about that. Do you think that the Buccaneers? And now I'm asking you, what do you think they would do? Not necessarily what you want them to do. Just to be clear, if they were to make a switch with Alex Kappa, would they? Do you think that they would deactivate Caleb Benenoch or Evan Smith first?
They have to deactivate Benenoch. Well, they don't have to, but it'd be what they would do is because Evan Smith is the backup center.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Jensen goes down, then you got to move Alley, and now you're moving Alley, putting some in for the other guard. It's just less pieces to move around if you activate Evan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. That's the way I look at it, at least. But like I said, I've been shocked, or you could go either way. You could say, okay, we're deactivating Evan Smith, and if Jensen goes down, well, we got Kappa and Benenoch both up. So there you go. It's just move Alley over, but that's moving three pieces instead of just one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I see the logic in that. There's the little thing where I look at, because Benenoch is still the starter, right? And Evan Smith is still the backup,
right?
Even though they're doing this weird thing, 75-25, whatever. Effectively, you're taking the starter, sitting him over, rather than shifting the backup down and making the starter the backup and bringing your new guy up. You're jumping your starter all the way down and putting a new guy in, or shifting some guy, however that works. So that's why I asked that question.
I know. I just think you're just hung up on that. It's not, it's not a perfect.
No. I think you have I think your point is really, really valid. I just wanted to dive into that a little bit and just see the thought process on that. So, okay, cool. So you were about to say what you think will happen, not necessarily what you think
should happen.
Curry,
McCoy, Griffith, Lidkey, Kappa, Wilson, Watson. That's probably what's going to happen, with Minter making the start because he could play special teams. Or maybe, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm going to change it. Curry, McCoy, Griffin, Lidkey, Kappa, Wilson, Minter. And I'm starting Watson because he has more familiarity with the special teams, and we'll see Minter next week.
Fair enough.
Unless they're worried about depth at linebacker position. That way it'd be Curry, McCoy, Griffin, Lidkey, Wilson, Watson, Kappa. Or anyway.
Well, I'm going to agree with you at least on the first 6 of those. Gerald McCoy, Vin Curry, Ryan Griffin, Alex Kappa, Michael Liedtke, and Sean Wilson. I think all of those guys are inactive this week. But as far as the last guy, here's the thing. Justin Watson has not been inactive for the last couple of weeks, so I don't see that starting again here anytime soon. The guy who was inactive last week, though, oddly was a defensive end, Damone Harris.
Right.
And, you would think with the injuries to the defensive line with Gerald McCoy and Vin Curry that they would have him active and maybe deactivate somebody else, but they didn't. They chose not to. And we are in the exact same spot this week with the defensive line that we were last week. So I feel like they're actually going to keep that copacetic, keep that exactly the same. And I think Damone Harris, I think our inactives list this week is going to look exactly like it did last week. So that's who I am predicting winds up in the inactive spot. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
The only 2 guys. Yeah. I mean, same guys are out.
Yep. There's just no change. So we'll see. But Minter, anytime, and I think that's something, anytime that we have a new person in the team, especially somebody who signed that week, it's a good bet that they're going to be inactive, generally speaking. I just happen to think this is a week where that may not necessarily be the case. So, all right, Ren, well, with that, man, that is going to put in the books our Buck in the News show for this week. So I'll give you a chance, man. Any final thoughts as we send the folks off to the Bengals game? And when you're done with that, go ahead and tell people where they can find you on the internet.
I think the Bucs roll this game. I don't think it's going to be close for most of the game. The final score might make you think it's close, but I think it's going to be a late score by Cincinnati if they do it. I think it's going to be a good game for Jameis Winston. I'm talking like 4 or 5 touchdowns. And I think the defense comes up staunch again. All they really have to do, in my opinion, is just don't let Joe Mixon beat him, because I don't trust Andy Dalton enough. He's gonna find AJ Green and he's gonna get his yards, probably 100 yards. And Tyler Boyd is a lot better than you've probably never heard of him, but he's having a good year because I keep seeing him on people's fantasy teams. I'm like, really? You got 22 points again? So obviously he's getting catches, obviously he's getting yards, and obviously he's getting to the end zone. So they are doing some good things there, but I think the key is going to be about Joe Mixon, especially with Bernard out for the Bengals. But I think the Bucs win, and it's not going to be in doubt. You're going to feel pretty comfortable and happy about it throughout the game. So the best way to find me on the internet is on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football.
And I'm with you on all of that with the game. If you guys want to find me, I'm at Brent Allen Live personally across all the social medias. You can get in touch with the show at the Pewtercast on Twitter and on Facebook, or you send us an email, as some people actually already have, and we'll be getting to those later in the week, next week after the game is over. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we've gotten a few that have come in here after our last recording goes. Oh, by the way, our second half of our Final Thought show was supposed to go out Friday afternoon, about 2:00 is when it was scheduled to go out, but for some reason it never did. So our listeners will be getting a double dose. This episode will go out side by side, back to back, with our second half of our Final Thoughts episode. So for anyone who's looking for extra Pewtercast content over the weekend, there you go. Merry Christmas. But like I said, you can get in touch with the show at the Pewtercast. At thepewtercast@gmail.com as well. And if you want to join the growing list of people who are supporting the show, you find out what's going on over at patreon.com/thepewtercast. Don't forget, join us 10 o'clock Sunday night for the Instant Cast. The phone lines will be open. As far as we know, the phone lines will be open, and we'll be talking about the game, giving all of our initial thoughts and reactions. Can't wait to do that. It's always a fun time. I missed you guys last week. I really did. I missed you guys a ton. So I can't wait to get back into that with you guys. So until then, Bucs taking on the Bengals. They're going to beat the Bengals. And through that, we'll always say, go Bucs.
Are we going to wear costumes for the Instacast?